Oh. Welcome, everyone, to Sportsbeat. And this is, let's see, I got to make sure I get it right. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. I am Vince D'Addario. That guy over there, that is Jesse Stiers. And you will notice, everyone, and those of you that are in the video stream over on YouTube, you'll notice that we are sans a very important person, and that is Sean Stiers. But fear not, Sean Stiers will be coming your way here very, very soon. About an hour and a half from right now, you will hear the dulcet tones of Sean Stiers as he gets ready to call the very first Notre Dame women's basketball game of the season. I believe it is an exhibition game to this evening, Jesse, and you'll be able to hear it here on WSBT, and he will be calling all of the action all season long, but this is game one, and this is what you're going to get when there's a women's basketball game going on. You're going to get stuck with me and Jesse and maybe a host of others, depending on, how things go and what's going on that day, and we're just going to try to keep the seat warm here for Mr. Stiers. So, Jesse, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well, Vince. Well, as well as I can be. I started to go back to the gym this week after being off for a month. So the week leading up to our wedding didn't work out. The 2 weeks of our, wedding and honeymoon didn't work out. And then we gave ourselves like a week of adjustment once we got back home. So this week has been getting back into the gym. And I have to be honest with you, it's been brutal. My body hurts. We did a cardio class yesterday, and usually during like the warm-up period, the stretching period, like you wear this heart rate monitor and you go by like zones, and the top zone is like completely, like 90% to 100% of your max heart rate, basically. I was like a tier below that in the warm-up. And so the entire workout yesterday, 30 minutes of my workout, I was in the max effort. So imagine you're just sprinting basically for 30 minutes straight. That was me yesterday. So I was definitely out of shape. I am feeling the pain this week. So, little sleepy. We've been getting up at 5:30 again every day, working out. So it's not been fun. It's cold and rainy, but I'm here with you. There's a women's basketball game tonight. I'm actually really excited for the game just because I've been asking, and I think a lot of people have been asking my dad, his opinions on what he thinks the women's basketball team is going to be this season. And he keeps saying, well, at least let me watch an exhibition game before I give you, what my thoughts. So as soon as this game is over, I'm going to start pelting him with questions about how he thinks this team is going to do this season.
And this is a radio-only broadcast. I don't believe that there is any video, no matter what you have to watch sports. I just checked the Notre Dame website, fightingirish.com. There is nothing listed for TV. So you got to listen to Sean Stiers. You can listen to him live at WSBT.com. You could also check out the Odyssey app, AUDACY. That's actually how I listen to most of the games when I want to listen to Sean. And you can hear all the action tonight. The pregame will start around 6:45, which means Jesse and I got to get out of here around 6:40. So it's going to be a slightly shorter show today. And we're all then going to be tuning in to Sean Stiers. So very excited for that game. And then there's also a bunch of high school football on tomorrow, Jesse. It's going to be the second round for Class A, or 1A through 4A, and then it's round 1 for Class 5 and 6. So that means our buddy Frankie Karczewski and the Adams Eagles, your alma mater, are going to be taking the field for the very first time in the postseason.
So do you know who Adams is playing, what their matchup came out to be?
They are playing the Kokomo Wildcats. I don't know if it's home or away.
In sectionals?
Yes, I know.
They now play Kokomo in sectionals.
They're playing Kokomo in the sectional opener. Kokomo is a 3-win football team. Your Adams Eagles, a 4-win football team. So it should be a knockdown dragout. And I think Frankie has a good chance of getting that first postseason victory since 2015. It's been a minute for the Adams Eagles. Yeah.
For those out there, I graduated in 2014. We had good success in 2012. I don't think we won a sectional game in 2013 because I think we had to play Mishawaka in the first round. I will say, though, I'm always rooting for my Eagles, rooting extra hard for Frankie this week.
Yes.
Tough week for him. So really hoping that those guys can pull out a win for him.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Good luck to the Eagles out there, and obviously good luck to all of our local teams that are going to be competing tomorrow night. We might touch on that a little bit in tomorrow's show. I'm not sure. We don't really talk a whole lot of high school, football and everything because we're kind of Notre Dame centric, which is not a bad thing. We got a game to talk about, Jesse, and because there's a game to talk about, it's Notre Dame at Boston College this Saturday at 3:30, and you'll hear the radio call right here on Sports Radio WSBT. The game day show is live from 11 to 2:30 Eastern. Join Tim Growl, Jim Irizarry, Eric Hansen, and Tyler Horka, as well as other great guests before the Irish take on the Eagles this Saturday. This week's guests are Captain Lewis Moore, Josh Lugg, and Mark Edwards. I love me some Mark Edwards. He's just a bruiser. It's back in the days of the fullback, Jesse. I know that you are partial to fullbacks as well. I mean, come on, man. Mark Edwards is like the mold of a fullback, so that'll be a fun one to have on to the show. So tune in for the game day show this Saturday from 11 to 2:30 Eastern time on Sports Radio WSBT and the Sports Radio WSBT app. So make sure you check all that out, guys. Should be a good one this week if you're a Notre Dame fan, with Notre Dame traveling up to Boston College. Again, that kick is at 3:30. Marcus Freeman met the media today for his final Zoom press conference of the week, and we actually have some audio from that press conference that we are going to chat about. Jesse, are you good with that?
Yeah, I want to I'm excited to, these ones are a lot more fun because it's closed door, right? So you get to, This is kind of like the intel of what goes on behind that closed door. But I wanted to sneak in a quick question for you before we dive into that. This is one of Notre Dame's 6 traditional rivals. You got Purdue, Michigan State, Stanford, USC, Navy, Boston College. And the reason why I call it, traditional is because to me, any rivalry that has a trophy involved is a true rivalry, right? Like it travels back and forth.
It helps. It helps. I still wouldn't call Stanford a rivalry, but to your point, there is a trophy involved, and you always want to win that trophy.
Yeah, and so it's the Lehigh Memorial Bowl. Others refer to the game as the Holy War. Yeah. My question to you, Vince, is: are you a little disappointed with the Holy War just because of where Boston College has been, really the last decade? Like, does this game, for being a traditional rival, having the trophy involved, the Holy War, like, I feel like this game should mean more to me this week, but it simply doesn't. And I just don't know how to feel about that.
No, this game does not spark anything in me. I know there's a lot of people out there that still remember 1993, obviously, with Boston College spoiling a national championship run for Notre Dame. I mean, I remember that going down, obviously. I was 12 years old. I mean, I remember it. But I don't know that I have like the ill will towards Boston College because of it. I'm sitting here at 44 years old, so that was a while back. And so I don't like Boston College is kind of the Michigan State to Michigan, kind of the little brother. It's the, if you wanted to go to a Catholic school, if you couldn't get into Notre Dame, then you went to Boston College, blah blah blah. All of the things that pro Notre Dame people would say about it. This one does not get me all that excited. And part of that reason is because Boston College has not been competitive with Notre Dame in a while. I mean, I don't know. This one doesn't really do anything for me, Jesse. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm stuck. I feel like, early on in the early 90s, maybe late 90s, early 2000s is when it kind of meant more. But, during that time, I was like 4 to 8 years old, right? And so obviously not some of the games that I remember, but like you said, Notre Dame hasn't lost to Boston College since 2008. And really, I'm looking at the series history right now. Boston College won in 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2007, and 2008. So they won 6 straight. And then ever since then, Notre Dame has basically won. And I wouldn't even say won. They've really dominated, especially the last few years, this series. And so, I just want this game at the end of the day to mean more, honestly. I want this to be teams who are more equally matched. Obviously, I don't want that to mean Notre Dame's losing games, but I would just like this rivalry or this series to have a little bit more, competitiveness to it.
And that was the last win was 2008, correct, for Boston College? Is that accurate?
Yeah, 2008.
Man, that was a long time ago. I had one child back then. Some would call those the good old days. I don't know. We'll see.
The more actually independent days.
That's right, man. So that was a long time ago, and I don't see that getting reversed on Saturday. But I mean,
let's
you never
hope.
know.
Knock on wood. I'm knocking on the wood.
It's why you play the game. We've seen enough severe underdogs come in and take out Notre Dame. So I don't want to count my chickens before they're hatched, but I do feel like this game is an opportunity for Notre Dame to put up some numbers and do some impressing of the CFP committee, because again, you got the rankings coming out on Tuesday, the initial CFP rankings coming out on Tuesday. And I'm sure we will talk more about that tomorrow and then into the beginning of next week with kind of where we think Notre Dame is going to fall and what those rankings might look like and things like that. I kind of want to get this weekend's games under our belt. There are some good games this weekend.
Let the dominoes fall.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see kind of where things are after this weekend. And, I'll just say I still feel like Notre Dame's going to get in at the end of the day. Maybe not Tuesday, but the end of the season.
There's still some work to be done.
There's definitely work to be done. And I think the way things are going right now, Jesse, and we're kind of getting off tangent here, but that's okay. The way things are going, I feel like hosting a game, that's getting further and further away. I feel like that.
Yeah, I'm just on the let's get into the playoff.
Yeah.
Boat, because I think right now, in that first ranking show that comes out, Notre Dame would quite honestly be the first team out. I think they're like the bubble team right now. I think they need some. I think they need some other Power 4 teams to start getting 2 losses underneath their belt. I think they're pretty close to the ceiling right now for a 2-loss team. Granted, if no one else lost ahead of them, and so I think that's why this Boston College game. If I'm Marcus Freeman, there's 2 things going into this. Obviously, you're not going to directly speak about the college football playoff, but Notre Dame is in a position now where they just can't beat teams. They need to convincingly beat teams and remind everyone that they're a top team in the country, both offensively and defensively. So if I'm Notre Dame, I'm going foot to throat the entire game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no such thing as a blowout anymore. Like you're trying to run it up. You're not worrying about anyone else's feelings because of the 2-loss team. You need to separate yourself as much as possible. So I think that on top of, Marcus Freeman probably, going through the tradition of this game, how it's still meaningful. It's the Holy War. There's, a lot of the stuff we just talked about. I think the guys will be ready to go for this game and hopefully just, exert their will the entire game, all 60 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that needs to be the mentality, obviously, the rest of the season, for every game that they have from here on out. And I think that will be the case, but they got to take it one game at a time and all the coaching cliches that you want to throw out there. But we do have some information to get to from this press conference. I would say, Jess, the biggest news out of this press conference is Jaden Greathouse will miss this week's game with a hamstring injury, while nickelback Devonta Smith, who has missed 2 straight games with a calf injury, is still listed as questionable. Our boy, Sean Stiers, asked Coach Freeman today if the injuries to those 2 players have been trickier to get them healthy than they might have originally anticipated. Take a listen.
Yeah, I think as you look at it, 2 different injuries. With Devonta, we were aggressive with trying to get him back, and he re-injured it when he was in the game. And that's something we've been trying to prevent. We wanted to get it to a point where, we're not pushing pushing him to play if he's not as close to 100% as he can be because of what can happen to the injury. So similar with Jaden, we're being smart. Like we're using kind of what happened with Devonta and kind of applying it to Jaden. Like let's be smart with how much we push him. Let's let his body truly heal up, and when he can help us, we'll make that decision to put him back in there. But we just don't want to rush it. He's not 100%, and we don't want to put him in a situation to re-injure his hamstring.
So what do you think about that from Marcus Freeman concerning Jaden Greathouse? I mean, he's been out for a few weeks now, and there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there, some in the chat right now, that are saying that, well, he's probably going to enter the transfer portal and they're just going to hold him out until the end of the season, preserve a year of eligibility, yada, yada, yada. Or do you think this is a legitimate injury and they're just going to wait for him to be 100% healed up and get him back on the field when he's ready to go?
Yeah, I think this goes one of two ways. I think it's concerning if the injury is true because it's been nagging and prolonged through the season. But in college, I played baseball with a guy who was a really good baseball player and had a hamstring issue himself. The issue is you don't know if your hamstring is fully good until you push it 100%. And then if you push it 100%, you could be back to square one because you basically re-injured your hamstring. So I think it gets to a point where it's kind of a mental game where you just don't know how hard you can physically push it without probably re-injuring yourself. And Greathouse doesn't know that until he pushes it 100%. So either way, I think it's an issue that it's prolonging. I think it's probably more the degree of the injury is probably higher than anticipated. I don't think Greathouse is a guy who is prolonging this so he can preserve a year of eligibility and so he can potentially enter the transfer portal. If I'm Marcus Freeman, the way I'm looking at the remaining schedule for Notre Dame is let's get healthy when it matters most, right? I hate to say that because every game matters. You want all of your starters out there for every game, but if there's a game to come back to or to miss, Boston College isn't up there where Notre Dame absolutely needs him to be back. They've had a ton of wide receiver production, through Will Pauling, through Faison, through Malachi Fields, through Eli Raridan. And so that's, I think, the best part about Notre Dame's offense is they're not running through a wide receiver one all the time. It's just a matter of who kind of gets open. The ball is being distributed to whoever's open. And Jaden Greathouse isn't this wide receiver one who's nearing 1,000 yards and, like 50, 60 receptions or anything like that. So not having him isn't catastrophic, but it's someone that you would like to have in a playoff push because he has playoff experience, and that's when honestly we saw him play some of his best football last season. And so getting him back, I think is more important for, the back end of the season and potentially a college football playoff appearance.
Yeah, I don't want to necessarily engage in like rumors and things that he's not happy with his role in the team and things like that, because I just don't know. And I've asked around a little bit and no one seems to know, and that's okay. So I'm going to look at this at face value and just say, look, they're waiting for him to be 100%. These are soft tissue injuries, and sometimes those can linger. I mean, anybody that's been in athletics and had a soft tissue injury, sometimes it can take longer than you think it should. You know what I mean? And so I am, like I said, I'm going to take this at face value. They don't need him against Boston College. Frankly, they don't need him the rest of the way. He had a coming out party in the playoffs last year. Let's see if he can do that again. You know what I mean? Like that's when you need Jaden Greathouse, is when you get into the playoff, and that's when you need your stars to be stars and all of those kinds of things. With that said, this is also an opportunity now to possibly get some younger guys some playing time. Greathouse has been out for the last few games, obviously, but in addition to him, Micah Gilbert is out this week with a hand injury. So our boy, Brian Driscoll, asked Coach Freeman if there are any young guys pushing for playing time who could give the starters a breather during the game.
I mean, if they need a breather, we have guys that will be ready to go. KK is ready to go. He's going to play, and he'll get more reps depending on the guys that might be in front of him, depending on how they feel. You're seeing Matt Jeffrey getting more and more opportunities. You'll see Cam Williams. You'll see Logan Saldalte. So those are the names that are the next group of guys to go in. Elijah Burris has been improving tremendously, but we're trying to hold him to not just waste his red shirt if we don't have to. But again, all those names that I just mentioned, them being on the field will be determined by how the flow of the game goes.
I would say, Jesse, so far this season, that's the one gripe I think I have, or a gripe I have with the offense right now, is that it seems like the starters are playing a lot. They don't really rotate as much as I would like to see them rotate. And I felt like it showed the last couple of games that we were watching. When I would go back and watch the film, guys look tired. They just look like they've got a lot of tread taken off of their tires so far this season. So I'm hoping that they can get these young guys in, and not just in, when they're up by a bunch and things like that. Like, actually rotate those guys in when it matters. Like, it's time to start seeing if these guys can carry the torch a little bit.
Yeah, and I think, and this is just speculation here, but I think what's ultimately holding back some of those guys is we know how important it is to block on the perimeter as a wide receiver in this offense. And so that is exhausting, Vince, is a guy who's just running routes and then also having to physically exert themselves by blocking, the way that they need to because of how good Notre Dame's run game is. And so I wouldn't be surprised if some of those guys aren't making the cut because they just simply can't block to the level that, is needed in order for the running attack to execute at the highest level. But, what was concerning to me is Marcus Freeman kind of talked about, wide receivers who might see an uptick in playing time. And, obviously we know KK Smith, but I'm a little disheartened to hear Matt Jeffrey is mentioned before, Cam Williams is. And maybe I'm looking too far into that. But, Cam Williams coming out of high school was supposed to be a pretty talented stud. And I just would like to see more development out of him at this stage, I guess is what I'm getting at. And so, hopefully that someone like him can see some playing time this weekend, assuming Notre Dame kind of takes care of business and Kenny Minchie and some of those, younger wide receivers can maybe see the field during the fourth quarter. But I don't know. I'm with you. I would like to see more wide receivers involved at the end of the day.
Well, lucky for you, Marcus Freeman did bring up Cam Williams, and we will get to that in just a second on the other side of the break. We'll have more when we come back on Budweiser's weekday sports beat with irishbreakdown.com. We'll talk a little Cam Williams. We'll talk a little offensive line. We'll talk a little corner. We got a lot more to discuss from Marcus Freeman's Zoom press conference, and we will have that for you when we come back. Welcome back to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. You got Vince, you got Jesse, and we are discussing Marcus Freeman's Zoom press conference that he does every Thursday of game week. And so this is the first Zoom press conference that we've had in a couple of weeks. And so we are pulling some audio and we are dissecting some of his comments. And we were talking wide receivers, Jesse, and you brought up a name that is on the lips of a lot of fans. Cam Williams. He was a highly touted recruit coming into Notre Dame. I feel like I have to remind fans a lot that he is a redshirt freshman. Like he's still very young. You know, he's still got a lot of time in the system. Tread. Yeah, 100%. And it's just, I get where fans are coming from. When you come in highly touted, it feels like you should make an immediate impact. He has not made that immediate impact. And people are wondering, well, where is this guy? Why is he not producing for Notre Dame? And he's played a little bit this season against Purdue, Arkansas, and NC State. He was a big-time recruit. And Freeman actually talked about his progress behind the scenes. So let's take a listen.
Yeah, Cam's progressing, man. He's getting better every day. And that's all he can control, right? And where he fits into the game plan is determined by, the depth chart, but the game plan each week changes. But again, Cam has to just continue to focus on improving, and he is. He's doing better in every area of being a wide receiver for Notre Dame. He's continuing finding ways on special teams to try to help our program. And so, like I said before, I've always said this, even with Leonard, is that, Cam earns the trust and the confidence behind the scenes before ever you guys are going to see it on the field of play. He's improving, he's getting better, and he'll be, seen in that light in your eyes here, hopefully before you know it.
All right, Jesse, what does that say to you about what Marcus Freeman and this staff think about Cam Williams?
Yeah, I when you hear Marcus Freeman talk about...
Whoop, my bad.
When you hear Marcus Freeman talk about players and kind of dissecting their playing time and maybe, what they need to do, anytime he mentions the word trust, that's like the immediate red flag that pops up, because what trust means is you don't 100% know the playbook. You aren't running your routes 100% of the time. And maybe we talked about a little bit earlier, you can't be trusted as a downfield blocker or maybe even an inline blocker if they motion you down into the box, right? And we've seen guys like Faison, smallest wide receiver probably on the roster, who blocks, probably just as good as anyone that's playing a skill position on the Notre Dame team. So the big word that I hear there is trust. And when a coach says trust, it means they can't count on you to be out there every single play, and you're a liability to the rest of the team in some way.
He's listed as Malachi Fields' immediate backup. And I think, number one, if you're the immediate backup at wide receiver, then you should be getting playing time when it matters.
Right.
I mean, there should be a rotation there. You should be getting playing time. So that's number one. We'll see what that looks like today. I also think that it will be very telling once we get into the offseason, or once we get into portal season, I should say. Are they going to go look for somebody for that position, or are they going to put it on the shoulders of a redshirt sophomore and be like, look, man, now it's your time. You're the third year into this program. You have this position. This is your position to take and to run with, and we're going to trust you, right? I think that's going to be very, very telling, because right now I'm not ready to give up on Cam Williams. I agree with everything that you said, because that trust word is a big one with coaches. I mean, look, if I can't trust you in practice, how can I trust you in a game? Kind of a thing. I feel like I've had that conversation with players. I've had that conversation with players' parents before. There has to be trust there. And you will play a guy who maybe isn't as talented, but you know that he's going to be in the right place. You know that he's going to put forth all the effort and all of those different things. It's a trust thing. So what happens in the offseason, what happens in portal season at the wide receiver position is going to tell me an awful lot about what this staff thinks about Cam Williams in the present, and then obviously in the future as well. And that could very well be, does he jump into the portal and try to go someplace else? Do they bring somebody in for that position and be like, hey, Cam, you're not doing it, so we're going to put somebody else in this spot? What does that look like? I'm not surprised they went out and got Malachi Fields for that position this year, because when a guy like that is available, you go get him. I mean, he is that talented, right? I mean, there's no doubt about it. Even if you have an up-and-coming Cam Williams, he's going to be gone after this year. So what does that mean for Cam Williams? I think that's the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo what you're saying there. I think this is a big offseason for the Notre Dame wide receiver room, like it has been the last few, because you have people like Will Pauling leaving, Malachi Fields leaving. Are they going to have to go out there to feel better about the room with getting more of that kind of veteran presence? Or is it going to finally kind of be, like we saw with the quarterback room and CJ Carr this season? Are they going to roll the dice and say, you know what, we have the confidence that guys like Greathouse, Cam Williams, KK Smith, Elijah Burris, Faison, guys that have been in this system for, 2 to 4 years, we have the confidence in them to go on and to lead the room, basically.
Yeah. Yep. It's going to be very telling. Another topic that came up in this Zoom press conference, Coach Freeman talked earlier this week about how Christian Gray has been banged up and playing through injuries this season. He was asked today about getting players to admit that they're hurt, and then the fine line between playing through pain to help the team without at the same time hurting the team because they're not 100%. Let's hear what Coach Freeman had to say about that.
That's an ultimate challenge because it works both ways. One, a guy wants to feel perfect before he actually goes out there, and you're trying to push him because he's physically able to do it medically, right, through the medical professionals. But then the other side is, guys that won't communicate how bad they're hurting. So, you try to remind these young people that you still have to put team before self. And that works both ways, right? That if you are in a position to help this team and we feel like you physically and medically can help this team, no matter if you're at 100% or you're in pain or not, then you have to put team before self. Well, at the same point, if you are injured, right, and you can hurt this team or hurt yourself, right, you got to put team before self and be able to communicate that. And so I think as you can spin it, both of those situations and scenarios is putting team before self, no matter if you're feeling great or if you're hurt, right, is let's do things that always put the team before myself.
All right, Jess, so you've obviously played football at the college level. You've played athletic, you've been an athlete your whole life. That line is tough at times. And I know your dad, and he is one of those guys that was like, hey, dude, rub some dirt on it, get your butt back out there. Like, he's that kind of dad. I'm that kind of dad with my kid. But like, how do you draw that line? You know what I mean? As to where you put team before yourself. Are you helping the team by playing hurt? Are you, hurting the team? Like, that's tough.
Yeah, I think for when you're evaluating this kind of situation, I think that there's like 3 things that you have to gauge. What your 100% level is, no injury, right? Like you know what that level is when your body is completely healthy.
What that feels like, yeah.
Yeah, completely healthy, at your best, whatever. When you're hurt, you have to reestablish what your 100% is, right? And so that new 100%, is it 80% of your original 100%? Is it 90% of your original 100%? And of that 80 or 90%, is it better than the next man's 100%? I think that's the way you have to look at it is your 100% when you're hurt still better than the 100% than the guy behind you? Can you still be a playmaker, be, trustworthy? Can you be counted on that you're not going to compromise the team or put the team in a bad situation no matter what? And so, there's been I remember, when I hurt my knee and had an MCL kind of tear, I was contemplating, does it make sense to kind of come back as soon as possible? Obviously the competitor in you, the player in you says, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to be out there with my teammates, whatever. And then you have to look at it in a smaller lens of, okay, well, is this what's ultimately going to help the team be better or help the team win at the end of the day? So came back after a week on an MCL sprain, But then I remember randomly I had to miss like 2 baseball games because I had this weird like upper back pain, right? And so it's like I can't actually physically swing a bat, but everything else I can do fine. And so it's like I had this strain in my upper back, right? And so like again, it sucks, but you just have to know like, okay, well for these 2 games, I am like not serviceable because it hurts just to swing a bat. Like I can't fully swing a bat without being in pain. So I guess again, it comes down to when you reestablish your 100%, is it better than the next man's 100%?
And that's the hardest part. I think that's where the coaches come in. That's where you have to have relationships with your players. That's where you have to know what those 100% are versus another man's 100% when he's injured, all of those different things. And, that's where those conversations come into play too. You got to sit them down, but like, look, man, I know you're giving me everything that you've got, but sitting out for a couple of games or sitting out this practice or whatever the case may be is going to be what's best for the team. And I think that's what Marcus Freeman is talking about putting team before self. You could go out there and you could play at what your current 100% is, even though that you're injured, but that might hurt the team in the long run. And you definitely don't want to do that. And then as a coach, you're looking at, okay, who's the next man in? And you got to weigh experience versus talent versus, all of those different things. So, that's where coaching comes in. And it's a very tough line to kind of cross. And so I don't envy coaches at that point because, specifically talking about Christian Gray, Jesse, I mean, he has a ton of experience in this secondary. And if he goes down, you're looking at not a lot of experience, a lot of talent, a lot of potential, but not a lot of experience. So when that gauge starts to go up and down with an injury or with, just being bumps and bruises and being hurt or whatever, where is that at where you're like, okay, Christian, it's time to sit. We need to get this young pup in there until you can get even better. And I think that's the hardest thing.
Yeah, and especially being thin in the secondary that like Notre Dame is this season, and then you compound that with the bodies that they do have being younger, underclassmen, not a lot of experience. It really puts Notre Dame in a bind, like you're talking about, and to throw it all together, like if Christian Gray and the rest of the secondary was struggling in those first few games, who's to say that the younger guys aren't struggling even more, right? And so
right.
You throw all those things together, the defense was struggling. You got an inexperienced room, you got a young room, and then Christian Gray is also dealing with the injury. That's a pretty, hard cocktail to manage of, well, ultimately what's going to be the best, for this team at the end of the day.
Yep, absolutely. And again, a lot of young talent in this defensive backfield, and we might see some more of it this week with Devonta Smith being questionable. So we might see some more Dallas Golden at nickel, and I guess we'll see. I mean, Christian Gray has never landed on the injury report, so I do want to say that. So is it just some wear and tear? Is it some bumps and bruises and things like that? So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays itself out. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll have more when we come back on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We're going to talk some offensive line, and we're going to talk some more young guys as we continue to dissect Marcus Freeman's Zoom press conference from this afternoon. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat, along with IrishBreakdown.com. We are, that's Jesse, I'm Vince, and we are talking about Marcus Freeman's Zoom press conference. And we've got a couple more cuts to get to, Jesse, before the top of the hour, which is rapidly approaching. We've got Notre Dame women's basketball coming up at 6:45, and so we have a hard out at 6:40, and then you'll be able to hear Sean Stiers, who is normally in this seat. He's going to be calling the women's basketball games, as he has done for the past 6 years and then a bunch of years prior to that. And this is game one. It's an exhibition game, I do believe, Jesse, and it is against Purdue Northwest. So that is tonight at 7 o'clock. And so you want to definitely stay tuned for that. But we've got a couple more cuts that we want to get to, Jesse. And the Irish offensive line is getting thinner after injuries to left guard Billy Schrauth and center Ashton Craig the last two games. Freeman talked about who's next at guard and tackle if they were to suffer another injury. Let's take a listen.
Oh, Big T, Big Chris Terek. He's ready to go. He could help us at both guards or at center. He's the next guy I think you would see. Will Black is back doing good things. He's improving. Maddie on the outside, but on the inside, you'll probably see Chris Terek would be the next guy to step up at all three of those positions you mentioned.
All three of the positions is Chris Terek. So apparently he is the new Sullivan Absher. He's the new sixth man on the offensive line. Jess, what are your thoughts on those comments from Marcus Freeman?
Yeah, I like how he led with big Chris Terek because he is big. He's 6'6" and listed at like 325. That's a big human being. Imagine being the guy, though, that kind of gets to be the Swiss Army knife of, hey, someone gets hurt. You could be at guard. You could be at center. You could be at left guard. You could be at right guard. Like, I don't know. I think there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. But that's kind of like I think the advantageous part or the fun part about being the sixth man is you never know until your number is called, right? And so hopefully it doesn't get to that type of situation. But I've said this before. I'm a big Joe Rudolph fan. I'm impressed with what he does with the multitude of injuries that have happened, last season and this season. And to be quite honest with you, I have no doubt that if it came down to it, Chris Terek would step in and do a good enough job to keep this team rolling.
I think we are biding our time for how long Billy Schrauth is going to be out. Is it going to be a couple of weeks? Is it going to be a month? What does that look like? I think that's going to be an important piece to this. And then, obviously you're going to slot him right back into his position at left guard and, kind of go from there. And then, of course, you've got the enigma that is Charles Jagasaw and when or if he ever comes back. And so this is the five that you're going to have for now. This is a five that you can still win with. I mean, the five that they've got right now, Sullivan Absher stepping in, I think they can win with this five, especially the games that they've got left on the regular season schedule. What does the playoff look like? I think that's going to be the biggest question mark moving forward. But these guys are going to have a bunch of time under their belt. And again, if Billy Schrauth comes back in time for the playoff, which I think that he will, you just plug him back in. He's got a bunch of playoff experience as well. So I'm not overly worried about the offensive line. I am a little worried about the depth. But, we'll kind of see how it goes from here and how these guys gel together because, that's going to be the biggest piece of this. They need time. They need some games together. They've had 2 weeks of practice, but you need some time. So I have a lot of faith that the offensive line will be just fine, at least for the rest of the regular season. Playoffs, different conversation. Regular season, no problem.
Yeah, this offensive line room just really needs to obviously take care of business, win these last few games, but then also get to the postseason. So I think they can get to the postseason. They can fortify, get stronger. But like you said, that's going to take a little bit of, practice on the continuity side of things. It's not like you get Schrauth back, you get Jagasaw back, you can just plug them in and everything is going to go great. It takes time to kind of be a nice orchestra along the offensive line.
Absolutely agree. So the next 5 games could present the Irish with chances to get young guys playing time if the scores get lopsided. Coach Freeman talked about the importance of that.
As far as playing young guys is something you always aspire to do, right? If you're in a situation where you can play some guys that haven't got in-game experience, like you want to be able to do that. But that's a result of every play getting your job done. Like that's a result of something that is uncertain in the future. So, it's not a great answer to your question. It's just that we don't think about it, but yeah, we would love that to happen. I love a lot of things to happen, right? I want to win. I want to play young guys. I want to be perfect, but wanting something and actually getting it done are two different things, and the focus has to be two different things. We got to focus on preparing to get our jobs done these next couple of days, and if we do that consistently on Saturday, maybe we can get some other guys in there.
All right, Jesse, your thoughts on the young guys getting in the game and where that focus should be on getting young guys playing time?
To be honest with you, I really don't like talking about backups and potential playing time for younger guys and all of that stuff, because that assumes that you're going to take care of business. And I don't think that Marcus Freeman has gotten himself off the hook of some of those mulligan games that, kind of have haunted him in the past, the Stanfords, the NIU, the Marshall. Like, yes, there's 5 games left that they should win, but Marcus Freeman has a track record of losing games like this every now and then. And so I hate talking about it because I think it starts to infiltrate the guys' minds of, this is a game that should be easy breezy. We're just going to take care of business. And then you come out flat and you're in a dogfight with a team like Boston College, who you should be beating by 30 or 40 points, right? And so I like to address these kind of situations post-game where, hey, we took care of business. Our guys were able to get in and play some time against Boston College because the starters did their job. So I like that more, that approach more so. I like, getting to the end of the game. Okay, we're up 40 points in the fourth quarter. Why don't we rotate in some younger guys? I just think you create the wrong mindset for a team and a coach who hasn't necessarily gotten themselves out of the woods of beating teams convincingly that they should be week in and week out.
Yeah, you don't want to go into games ready to play backups, because that's what happened with Brian Kelly. That's what's happened in the past with some other games that you should have won, and you should have won convincingly, and that didn't happen, right? I'll never forget the Ball State game, from a more than a few years ago. But that was when our boy Danny Pinner was playing at Ball State, who's now with the Indianapolis Colts. Like they practiced with the backups most of the week and gave the starters kind of like a bye week almost, and it came back to bite them. And they were a Danny Pinner touchdown away from potentially losing that game. I don't know if you remember that, Jesse, but that was a game that should not have gone down the way that it did. So
I remember that game.
Oh yeah,
The
remember
Toledo
he almost caught a
game
touchdown
as well.
So yeah, that's not the way that you want to go into a game. Now, if you can go in and take care of business, then you worry about getting guys in the game and getting experience and all of those things. And you've got a smaller roster when you're on the road anyway, and so you can be much more focused on what you're doing to what you need to do to get things accomplished than when you're at home and you have 120 guys dressed and on the sideline. You got a lot less when you're on the road, so I actually think that helps a little bit. We've got one more cut that we want to get to before we get out of here for the top of the hour. Marcus Freeman also discussed Bubakar Traore's growth this season, coming back from the knee injury that sidelined him for most of last season.
As I think back to last year, before he got injured, he was doing some really good things in the pass rush game. I mean, he was one of our most dominant defensive players. I don't know what the statistics says, but I know that we viewed him as one of our best, if not the best, pass rusher before he got hurt last year. And then, what he's done is work. While you rehab, work while you are getting back to playing mode, and it's just reflection of the hard work you put in, and that's mentally and physically. There's probably two options after you tear your ACL. You can mope and feel bad for yourself, or you can utilize the pain to make you better. And that's what he's done. He's worked his tail off. He's prepared his tail off. He's gotten better with experience and time. But Bubakar has always been a player that we view as a definite weapon for us in the pass rush game, and he's doing great things in the run game too.
What are your thoughts on Bubakar this year, Jess?
Yeah, Bubakar Traore has been tremendous. I think he's He's lived up to the expectations after giving us that little sample size last year. He's been their premier edge rusher with 6.5 sacks. He ranks 8th in the country in sacks per game. And you got to realize, too, that there's some really talented defensive ends ahead of him overall in the country as well. There's the guy in Miami, the guy down at Texas A&M. Both teams, both guys that Notre Dame has had to face. I think what's most impressive is how driven and focused he is for someone who's relatively young at the end of the day, right? I think when these kind of injuries happen to younger players, especially kind of earlier on in their career, their playing career, college playing career, it can really, set you back mentally. Obviously, there's the physical setbacks that come with tearing your ACL, the rehab, everything that goes with it. But, I think the mental part is what's more impressive about Bubakar Traore is he hasn't allowed it to set him back. He stayed focused. And honestly, I would say he's gotten better from last season as well. So to sustain an injury that serious, to, be focused and to be back out there game one, and then also to up your game, your level of play this season, I think has just been highly impressive. And to me, it makes me more excited for what's to come because I think his career at Notre Dame is going to end up being really special.
Yeah, I think they're just scratching the surface with who Bubakar can be and what he can be at Notre Dame. I really do feel that way. And Mitch is throwing some shade at you, by the way, for getting married and doing your thing. But no, I think Bubakar is a tremendous talent. I think he got kind of a step back, obviously, when he got injured because he was on a tear last year when he got injured, and then to sit out for almost a year and then come back, and it was it's tough to come back from a knee injury. You have to trust it, and you have to do all the things that to feel like you're back in the game. I think that's basically what this year is for him, and he has been tremendous even under that umbrella, right? And then you give him an entire offseason to get bigger, faster, stronger. I almost feel bad for opposing offensive tackles next year when he hits the field. It's going to be something. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. That's for sure. All right, we are going to take a quick break. It is the top of the hour. It's a little past 6 o'clock. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll have more when we come back on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat, along with irishbreakdown.com. It'll be rapid fire time, Jesse. So prepare yourself mentally, everybody. We got rapid fire when we come back on this side of the break. Welcome back to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat along with IrishBreakdown.com. I am Vince D'Addario. That is Jesse Stiers. And if you are a frequent listener to Weekday Sports Beat, you know that we are missing our buddy, Sean Stiers. Well, there's a reason for that. He is the play-by-play guy for Notre Dame women's basketball, which you can listen to right here on WSBT. And that will tip off at 7 o'clock. Pre-game starts at 6:45. So, Jesse, we got a hard out here at 6:40. And so we will be with you guys for the next half hour, almost exactly. And we are excited about women's basketball. It's going to be fun. And you're going to get every game here on Sports Radio WSBT. And you can also find it on the Odyssey app, AUDACY. That is generally what I do. I like to get the app going, and then I watch the game on TV and kind of sync it up. So I got Sean Stiers doing my play-by-play, but I also get to watch the game. But tonight there's no TV. So if you want to watch the game between Notre Dame and Purdue Northwest, I almost went Northeast, Purdue Northwest, then you're going to have to listen to it on either the radio or the Odyssey app. So definitely check that out. This weekend, we've got Notre Dame at Boston College this Saturday at 3:30, and you'll hear the radio call here on Sports Radio WSBT. Game day show is live from 11 to 2:30 Eastern Time. Join Tim Grau, Jim Irizarry, Eric Hansen, and Tyler Horka, as well as other great guests before the Irish take on the Eagles this Saturday. This week's guests are Capron Lewis Moore, Josh Lugg, and Mark Edwards. So tune in for the game day show this Saturday, again, 11 to 2:30 Eastern Time on Sports Radio WSBT and the Sports Radio WSBT app. All right, Jesse, it's that time. Are you ready for a little rapid fire?
It's time we get down to the nitty-gritty.
Love that. All right, here we go. Little Notre Dame question for you. The one thing that you expect to see from Notre Dame on Saturday is blank. Leave it wide open for you.
Yeah, I'll keep this one short, simple. I expect dominance, and I expect dominance so much so that we get to see some of the second unit come in on both sides of the ball. Listen, Boston College is not a good team. Listening to their coach this week, he is very, as probably most teams are, except USC maybe for some reason, very scared about Notre Dame's run game. And the two-headed monster. So, I've listened to some of his press conferences. He's mentioned it multiple times. Notre Dame just needs to come in, put their foot on the throat, and continue to apply pressure the entire game. Again, so much so that we should see a lot of that second unit working its way in at the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the defense has obviously been on a pretty steep incline over the last few weeks. It's been really nice to see. And so I have started to not really worry about the defense. I feel like they're kind of hitting their stride, which feels really good. And so I've been very happy about that. What I want to see on Saturday, I want to see the offense kind of get back on track. I mean, they haven't been terrible, but they haven't been super efficient either the last couple of weeks. And obviously a lot of that starts with the quarterback, and I feel like if you give CJ Carr a bye week, you give him a chance to watch some film of himself, of the opponent, all of the above. I feel like the offense is going to be clicking a little bit better this Saturday than it was the last Saturday that Notre Dame played, and even the Saturday prior to that. So I'm just hoping to see the offense kind of get back into a groove, make them a little bit more balanced with the run game and the pass game. I don't anticipate Jeremiah Love going for over 200 again, that kind of a thing. But I do anticipate some numbers from the offense. Hint, hint. So I would say if you're going to tune in tonight to the spread option show that we do over on CFB Nation on YouTube, I would say that you're going to expect a lot of overs when we're talking about the Notre Dame offense against Boston College. So definitely tune into that. That's tonight at 8 o'clock. So you're going to want to tune in for that one.
I'm surprised Jesse, I haven't gotten the guest invite to that show. Little disappointed.
It's coming.
Little hurt. We know if there's one person who places a sports bet every single day, it's this guy.
That is very true. That is actually very, very true. We might have to spice it up a little bit and bring a little Jesse Stiers in there. It's all college football. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say, though, it's a lot harder for me because in Ohio, they don't have college player props.
True.
But I have – I mean, this is going to sound bad, but, whatever. I already outed myself. I have recently found this really cool new app where it has NBA, NFL, college football, NHL, and I think another sport. But it's called Prop Finder, and it has every prop for every game of every sport for every player. And not only that, Vince, but it gives you their splits versus, like, let's say, for example, tonight I'm looking at Jalen Waddle, the Dolphins wide receiver going against the Ravens. I can look at his splits versus man versus zone. I can see how often the Ravens run man versus zone. I can see, how every other wide receiver did against the Ravens and their matchups prior to this season. So I'm just saying I've upped my game. If you guys ever need, a special guest, you know where to find me. If we're talking sports betting, I could be there instantly.
I mean, if you're available on Thursday nights at 8:00, I think we might have to make this happen. So just throwing that out there. And actually, I'm not going to be available next week. So Trevor might need a co-host. Just put it out there.
You might need to float that idea tonight.
I'm just saying. I'm actually going to be in Dallas next week. So you might have to step in for me. So that could be a lot of fun. All right, next rapid fire question. Let's keep this thing rolling, Jesse. The Blue Jays intentionally walked Shohei Ohtani 4 times during this week's 18-inning World Series Game 3. Do you buy or sell that you shouldn't be able to intentionally walk a player more than once in a game?
I'm actually a big buy on this. And if you asked me this 10 years ago, I probably would have said, oh, that's just good strategic baseball. But baseball has made very clear initiatives to bring more offense and action to the game. And I just think at the end of the day, it's kind of lazy. I don't think that you should ultimately get to decide that you're just not going to pitch to one of the most electric offensive players in baseball 4 times. I think you should have to strategically use that. Like, I'm not saying that it should be gone completely, but I think it should be limited to maybe 1 or 2, right? Like, there's the batter doesn't get the option to say, you know what, this is the best pitcher in baseball. I'm just going to sit this at bat out, or I'm just not even going to go up there, right? I'm just going to take my 3 strikes and sit out, or I should be able to get another pitcher in the game. There's nothing on the other side to kind of neutralize what the pitching can do to you. So, I mean, I get it. At the end of the day, it's like the ultimate respect as a hitter. They're telling you, like, we don't want to pitch to you. And who would want to pitch to Ohtani in Game 3 when he had like 2 doubles and 2 home runs before they started intentionally walking him? So I think that 4 is way too much. Like 1 or 2, and you should strategically have to use them.
So I know you're very young, and you were not probably. In fact, I know you weren't watching like in 1998 and beyond, like the Barry Bonds years when they were walking him all the time. They were walking runs in, like bases loaded. They're still walking Barry Bonds. How'd you feel? Like, how would you feel if they did that to Shohei? Like bases loaded, he comes up, they walk. I
think that's an exception because you're letting the other team score. You know, like if you want to walk a guy at bases loaded, you're so worried about a guy getting more than 1 run that you're okay with giving them 1 run. Like, that's a crazy thought at the end of the day.
It is a crazy thought, but that's how dangerous he was back then when he was juicing, man. Like, you didn't want to throw the ball anywhere near Barry Bonds at that time. I was not a Barry Bonds fan, but I would have walked him every time he came to the plate if I was the opposing manager. Every single time.
I really wish that, not that, you aren't great, but I really wish my dad could answer this question, because when we were in high school, there were a couple studs who played for Elkhart Central, and I swear the kid would hit a home run like every game. My dad walked him, and the one time he didn't walk him, he hit a bomb off of us. And Central was mad. Totally was not excited about it, and they let us know that. And so I wanted to know. Yeah. I wanted to know his input coming from a guy who has intentionally walked to someone multiple times. They could just be like Concord. And just throw at someone like they did at me. They threw at me twice. I would have gladly taken my walks. I didn't want to be thrown at my head, though.
I can appreciate that. So, like, if you weren't allowed to intentionally, so let's say you're the manager of the Blue Jays, right? You're not allowed to intentionally walk him. Are you straight up pitching to him, or are you going to pitch around him?
Just, yeah, like the intentional, if you want to just go with the intentional walk, just throw him freaking 4 balls on the outside,
Okay.
like.
Okay. So you just don't like the intentional piece of it.
No, and I hate that you can just point to the base and say, yep,
Yeah.
just go ahead and go down. Like, no pitches are thrown.
Yeah, I like the old school way of, you at least have to, put the catcher's got to put his hand out and you got to go through the motions.
Right. Because there have been times where guys will swing at those pitches.
Oh, yeah.
And have made contact before.
100%. You accidentally sneak one a little too close.
Crowd the plate a little bit.
Yeah, man. See, I'm all for that.
Grab your 36-inch bat instead of your 33-inch bat.
Adds a little drama. It's a little bit of drama.
Plus, it still puts the pressure on the pitcher to make that pitch. They could still throw a wild pitch. It could be a pass ball. Like,
that's true.
The runners could still, there's a lot more layers to it than just pointing your finger to the base 4 times and saying, all right, take your base. Yeah.
Just putting up the 4 fingers. We're walking them. We're walking them. I can't remember if I ever walked anybody as the head coach of the high school team that I coached, because we weren't great. So like one run wasn't going to make a difference, kind of a deal. I'm pretty sure we pitched to everybody. But I could see it if it's a competitive game and things like that. But I don't know. An 18-inning game too. It's like one minor mistake can really affect, what happens in that 18-inning game. You know what I mean? So I get it towards the end of that game too, because everything is amplified. Every pitch is amplified. Every play is amplified. It's a little bit different if it was like the 3rd inning of a 9-inning game. You know what I mean? So, all right. Former LSU and USC head coach Ed Orgeron has been out of coaching since he was fired by LSU midway through the 21 season. He told On3's Andy Staples that he's willing to be a head coach or a defensive line coach as long as it's with someone who believes they can win a championship. So, would you hire Ed Orgeron as your defensive line coach?
This is the easiest yes of my life. And the reason why it's so easy, Vince, is like, let's just say for whatever reason, Al Washington decided to take that Boston College job, right? Or maybe some other head coaching job. And now your defensive line position is vacant. Who has a better resume than Ed Orgeron? A national championship coach, a no-nonsense coach, a guy that brings a lot of toughness to the room. He can recruit, because look at the roster that was put together that season. He won the LSU national championship. And so, yeah, I would 100% be there, because if I were ever grateful to have the opportunity to be a head coach at any level that it's competitive, where there's something on the line, I want to fill my staff with coaches who have also won at a high level. There's no such thing as being the smartest person in the room, in my opinion. You want to surround yourself with as many Ed Orgerons as possible, just because he can bring that experience and mentality of a national championship, team to your room.
Listen, I would never put him in charge of literally anything, but I would not mind him at all being a position coach. You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
That's where you draw the line.
Yeah. He can be a position coach, because I can keep my thumb on him a little bit. I mean, did you see the video that was out recently of him at a wedding reception? He's got his shirt off and he's swinging it in the air, just having a great time.
Still.
Like 100%. But that's not head coach material. You know what I mean? Like, that's position coach material. Like, you can strip down and do whatever you're going to do at the party and have a good time with your D linemen and have whatever that you want to do. But he's not head coach material. I would hire him in a heartbeat as the defensive line coach, in a heartbeat, because you know what? He is very down to earth, and he will get his players to play for them or play for him. You know what I mean? 100%. So I would absolutely bring him on, but there would also be very much a sit down between him and myself, and we'd be like, "Look, Ed,
we got to tone some stuff back there.
There's going to be some guidelines here. There's going to be some guardrails to your tenure here at our school. but I would bring him on. I think he would add some levity to that room as well, which I'd be okay with. And I mean, are you kidding me? You bring Coach O like on the recruiting trail too, the Irish. Just bring him in and have some fun. Like he'd get you some recruits. There's no doubt about that. So, Ed Orgeron, come on down, baby. I'd take you on my staff. It's not like he needs the money. He's doing okay from a money standpoint. So you can pay him whatever you want too. All right. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to polish off our rapid fire questions. We got a few more in the holster here. So we'll have more on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com on the other side of the break. Welcome back to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat along with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Vince, that's Jesse, and we are going to take it home here with a little bit of rapid fire. We've got a hard out here at 6:40 because at 6:45 we get Notre Dame women's basketball pregame show with Sean Stiers, and then at 7 o'clock is tip-off between Notre Dame women's basketball, or the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and Purdue Northwest in their first exhibition of the season. And I fully expect you tomorrow, Jesse, because I will not be on the show tomorrow, but I fully expect you to grill your dad, Sean, on how the women looked tonight, because he kept giving us this excuse, as you mentioned in the first hour, about how he didn't really want to, make any prognostications or anything because he hasn't seen them play yet. That is no longer an excuse after tonight.
Yeah, he's not much of a prediction guy. I don't know if you knew that, but he does not like predictions. He does not like to be held to his predictions. So don't worry, not to be too cliche, but I will full court press him tomorrow.
I appreciate that very much. That's what always needs to happen. Always keep Mr. Sean Stiers on his toes. Okay, let's jump back into the world of baseball. Obviously, we got the World Series going on right now. The World Series heads back to Toronto, and they're up 3-2. So scale of 1 to 10, the chance that the Blue Jays win the whole thing tomorrow night.
Yeah, Vince, just because I need to stroke my own ego here a little bit, I said before this series Blue Jays were winning in 6 games. I even bet that on FanDuel that the Blue Jays would win the series 4-2. So selfishly, and I have the receipts for all of this, I have to say I'm a 10 out of 10. I think that the Blue Jays get it done. And and on a real note, though, if they don't get it done tomorrow, I don't think they get it done in Game 7. They have 2 chances to beat the Dodgers. Obviously, this is a really good Dodgers team. They won it last season. They're going for the back-to-back championships. I truly believe that if the Blue Jays don't get it done tomorrow and they let them linger around, that's when you could see them kind of ultimately fail in Game 7 as well. So I think they need to get it done tomorrow in Game 6, or they lose the series overall. So I think this is their best chance. I think their best pitcher, their most experienced pitcher, is going to be going as well. So this is a 10 out of 10 for me.
The Blue Jays have obviously been playing well, and they have done a very, very good job defensively against this Dodger roster. I mean, this Dodger lineup, which is a little bit surprising, to be honest with you. I mean, the Dodgers have not looked good on the offensive side of things the last couple of games. Can they continue to do that, even though they're going to be at home and all of those different things? I mean, I like the Blue Jays in this spot. I do. So scale of 1 to 10, I'll put it at like a 7.5. I mean, they're at home. They got a chance to win this whole thing tomorrow night. I do tend to agree with you. They do not want this to go to a Game 7 at all. That's not a place where I think, the Blue Jays are young, the whole deal. The Dodgers have just so much more experience than the Blue Jays do, at least on a whole. And so that you don't want to go to a Game 7 in that regard. And so I think I agree with you. If they're going to win it, I think they've got to win it at home tomorrow night. World Series champs, north of the border. How does that make you feel that a Canadian team is going to win for the first time since 93? That was the Joe Carter home run, right?
The Blue Jays won it 92 and 93 back-to-back years. That's the last time that they have won it. And I don't know if you know this as well. I got some Canadian sports fanatics that I know that I went to college with. Who actually just got to see this past weekend at a wedding. The NHL hasn't won. A Canadian-based NHL team has also not won it since 93. So the last time Blue Jays won it is the last time an NHL team also won the Cup. I think it's Canada's year. I think the Blue Jays are going to win it. And I think it would be quite interesting to see, the only Canadian professional team, MLB team, to win it all. And I hope that the NHL would follow.
Have you watched the Expos documentary on Netflix? That's something I do have in my queue that I do want to watch.
It's on my favorites list, but I have not watched it either.
All right. We're going to have to circle back around to that one because that one does interest me very much. But that's definitely going to be one of those things that I have to watch when no family is around because they could give 2 rips on that one. So,
yeah, that's a one where if you have some alone time, which is very
Right.
hard in your household, that's something that you could throw on.
Yeah, I'm thinking plane ride to Dallas could be it. So we'll see how it
Ooh.
goes, All right. So Nebraska kind of shocked everybody here today. They extended Matt Rule by 2 years, and he now has a $15 million buyout. That is blank. Take it wherever you want.
Yeah, that to me is just meh. Like it's like at the end of the day, it's what's the word? Something that isn't deserved. I think something that is a little bit premature at the end of the day, because let's really dive into what Matt Rule has done since being the head coach at Nebraska. In his first season, they went 5-7. In his second season, they went 7-6. And they made their first bowl game in 8 seasons or something like that. And then this season, he's 6-2. So overall, he's 18-15 as the Nebraska head coach. And what does he ultimately want at the end of the day? Like, who have you beaten this season in a marquee matchup that's like, yes, we can overlook your 500 seasons, first 2 seasons, and give you a 2-year extension worth $15 million. I think Matt Rule owes James Franklin, Billy Napier, Brian Kelly a nice little thank you card come Christmas time.
Right.
Because all these schools are just panic firing their coaches and reaching out to what seems like everyone. And now that has led down this trickle-down effect of all these coaches getting extensions. Like we're starting the extension party. And so, again, for someone who's in their 3rd year and hasn't even – like they play USC this week. Like, what happens when they go out there and lose to USC? Is this a guy that you wanted to give $15 million to for over 2 years? It just seems very premature to me, and not overly deserving. Again, I know Nebraska wants to be back, and they obviously feel like the program is in the right hands. But what is Nebraska doing to overcome IU, Ohio State, Michigan? Up until this season, Penn State, I just don't know what he did to deserve this kind of extension already.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. This is way premature. I know there was potential overtures from Penn State about him, because he's an alum and all of those kinds of things. But this feels like a reaction move by Nebraska, and I just don't know that it was really necessary at this moment. You know what I mean? If you're Penn State, where are you going, man? Like,
Brian Kelly,
like, is that really the move right now? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. That it'll be, like I said, we've said it before. I'll say it again. This offseason is going to be very, very interesting to see what direction all of these schools are going to go. Because in my opinion, there are not enough candidates for as many openings as there are.
Well, and there's not enough good candidates for the amount
Right.
of premier openings there are. I think, and I want to get to our last question, so I'll be really quick here. I think that these premier openings need to dig a little bit more. I think if you really want, you need to find a Signetti, a hidden gem. If you truly, a Kalen DeBoer at the end of the day, someone who can, is maybe not the most marquee guy, but really knows how to turn a program around. You're not going to just hire someone of these, everyday names, and they're just suddenly going to come into an SEC school and change everything.
I hear you. All right, we got about 90 seconds, so we want to make sure we get this last question in. So this is going to be on the hop here. Halloween is tomorrow. What are your top 3 favorite candies, and what candy should be banned from being passed out on Halloween? Go.
I'll give you 3 of each. Top 3: Reese's, Almond Joy, Twix.
Ooh, you lost me on Almond Joy, but okay. Which one needs to be banned completely?
And I'll give you 3 of the worst ones.
Wow.
Black licorice, Tootsie Rolls, chocolate-covered raisins.
What about those ones that come, they're either in the black wrapper or the orange wrapper, which could basically be used as doorstops? I think you got to get rid of those. Those are awful. I'm a 3 Musketeers guy. I'm anything Reese's, and I'm a Kit Kat guy. Those are my 3 top favorites.
Okay.
And the 10% dad tax does come into play with those 3 particular candies. When the kids come home.
I'll take one of those.
And the kids know it too. They're like, "Oh, here's your 3 Musketeers, Dad." So yeah, absolutely. All right, Jess, let's get out of here. We got to hand it off to your dad who's going to be calling some Notre Dame women's basketball tonight. Thank you for joining us on Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat along with IrishBreakdown.com. Stay tuned. It is Notre Dame women's basketball against Purdue Northwest, and we will see you tomorrow night at 5 o'clock.